immediate family is very liberal, and I always grew up in a very liberal household with two parents who were very open-minded, very modern, and so from a very young age, like, I mean, of course, we can all, it'd be like a prejudice and stuff, and I, of course, wasn't as like educated about other cultures or about other people and other like sexualities, like for example, like as I am now, but I was just raised in a way so that I was taught to not judge people and to not impose, to not assume things about people, and just come like with an open mind. And if I wanted to find out more about a person, I should talk to them directly instead of making assumptions about what other people like were saying. And so I mean, I guess like there was always that influence, and I was even very a different. I mean, this is a story of how I clashed with my parents. This is a story of how I clashed with my community. I remember around the time when Bush was running for a president, like a George W. Bush, a lot of the kids, I think I was in either late elementary or early middle school, a lot of the kids at the time were like, their parents were very big supporters of Bush, and my parents were supporters of, I think this was the Kerry and Bush elections. He was like running for like a re-election. My parents were very big supporters of Kerry, and just listening to all of those kids just saying that they liked Bush, and also a lot of them have brought up like war and stuff, and just fighting back and fighting terrorism, and that was never like a big issue in my house. Like my parents saw something in Kerry that they did not see in Bush, and also my family, like, we're a pacifist. That's a part of our like religion, and so we're 100% against war and against any kind of war, and so that was a big thing. And so and because I was still young, I was still very much under the influence of my parents, I hadn't yet been able to really think for myself. I felt very ostracized from my school community because I felt like they were all believing something that I didn't see in my parents. But that doesn't explain how I clashed with my parents. But I will say, after my first year at Earlham, even though I grew up in a very liberal family, coming here, in my first year, I learned so much about terms to call people, and that, my family had never really talked about what to do when you don't identify with the pronouns of like he and him and she and her. Like we never like really talked about that. We never really explicitly did like discuss like a sexuality and like what do you call that when you like men and women, or to go outside the binary, like when you like anyone, like regardless of their like sexuality, like or gender. We never really discussed that. And so that first year I came back, I just had all this knowledge and all this newfound things. And I also learned a lot of terms. Like, for instance, I learned, because I started dating a guy who's on the autism spectrum, I learned that using the R word, so saying like that's like a retarded thing, like learning that word is offensive and is as offensive to people on the spectrum as the N word is to like people of color. Like, going back there and learning all of that, and then hearing my family members use that word, and just, I remember having an argument with my mom because she used that word, and I probably got too defensive about it, but I got so up in arms about her using that word, and then it turned into this big argument between me and her, and how she felt like I was trying to control what she could say, and I really wasn't. I was just coming from a new perspective of going off into the school and realizing that there are other words that I had been using all along that could be seen as problematic, and that I had never really thought about before.
Do you think it's justified? It's a very kind of critical question, but do you think it's justified for people who know those terms to consider like what people who don't know those terms problematic? Like, for example, if I didn't know about LGBT, right? Then if I just out of accident said something that were to be taken as offensive by the people who knew those terms, then could what I said be considered problematic by those people? Why I don't know all those things?
I mean, I think it can still be considered problematic, but also you didn't know, and so that's a good lesson for you to learn, and since you didn't know at the time, your intentions were not to be like harmful or malevolent. It was just coming from a place of ignorance, which is totally okay. I mean, all of us are ignorant about something. It's just we should always be striving to learn more and more about like our surroundings and other people, but we're going to mess up. And I think what if someone does happen to mess up and slip up and say something that they shouldn't say, it should be other people's responsibilities to educate them, but to do it in a way that's polite and respectful, and not that turns into this whole like blasphemous thing, and somehow like ostracizes that one person who messed up, because we're all going to make mistakes, and I think people need to be understanding, need to come from an understanding place. And of course, I mean, that's easier said than done. And there are always times when I hear someone say something that's very problematic, and my first like reaction is to get really angry. But I should remind myself, and I want to remind others, that it should come from a place of love. It should come from a place of you want to help them, and you want to help them on their journey of becoming more educated about the world.
Have you ever been in a situation that, like, there are some terms out there that are considered politically correct, and you don't know about those terms, but at the same time you don't want to learn about those terms because to some extent those terms do not fit some aspect of your value system? Have you ever been in that situation? Like, for example, there are people who don't want to consider the political correctness, for example, of the terms LGBT, because the belief in that classes with their religious belief. In that case, have you ever been in that situation?
Okay. Is there a term that I've learned about and I just don't feel comfortable using because of my beliefs?
Probably. That classes with your family.
That's a it's a politically correct term. No, actually, at least not with my personal beliefs. Of course, the LGBTQ issue, I mean, my religion, so I am from a Church of the Brethren, and we are a small Christian denomination. And as of this past annual conference, the church as a whole still does not support same-sex marriage. So from a general perspective, that term that is inclusive, it does go against my religion, but not against my personal spirituality that I get from being a Brethren. Because even though I identify as a Brethren, I still find issues within the Brethren church, and because I love and care about it so much, I hope to see a resolution to those issues. And my hope is that the church will become more inclusive, because people are becoming more educated about issues like that. I mean, back in the 80s, people didn't really talk about sexuality. It was just assumed. I mean, even back before that, I mean, people just always assumed that if you're a woman, you're going to marry a man. If you're a man, you're going to marry a woman. No one really talked about it. And so now, since a lot of those issues are just now surfacing, and although they've been talked about a lot in these specific, in the LGBTQ communities, there hasn't really been a nationwide discussion until I don't know, the past 20 or 30 years, or even 10 years. So I think people are still coming to terms with it, and people are still scared of the change. And so even though there hasn't been a term where I have specifically, there hasn't been a politically correct term that I have specifically clashed with, there have been terms where a group I identify with could clash with that. But I have no personal problem with any politically correct terms as far as I know.
Then the value. So when we negotiate values, the value is rested upon different groups, right? Because before you mentioned how you were surprised when you realized that what you believe, what your parents taught you to believe at home, has some difference with what your friends at school believe.
Yes.
Then how do you It appeared to me that the negotiation of values will involve the negotiation of relations. You have to know how to deal with those different groups. How did you deal with that? In the first case with your friends at school, and the second case with the church people.
I think to deal with that, I mean, you need to come in with the understanding that not everyone is going to believe the exact same things you need to believe, and that you yourself, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you can't forcefully change a person. They need, like, if they're going to change, they're going to do it themselves. So I think you need to go in with that understanding, and also you also need to see whoever you have a conflict with, or like whoever a person, like, your values are conflicting with. You need to see them as a person, as a human first, before you see them as a potential enemy or as someone who is conflicting with what you believe. So I mean, in my opinion, to negotiate these values and to get people from different perspectives together and talk is to have heart-to-heart conversations, and to, like, really ask, like, why do you believe this, or like what about this belief like resonates with you? Like, tell me a personal story. Like, is this a personal thing? Is it just what you like you grew up with? So is it like a childhood thing? Is it because like your parents taught you this? So it has like a sentimental value. It's really just asking those questions and try not to be too judgmental on your questions. And then to just give your own point of view, and then if there is a disagreement, like, it's okay to disagree, and even if you think what they believe is absolutely like downright wrong, the last thing they need to hear is to hear you say that. So I mean, I don't think you should come out and say, I think you're wrong. I think you should show them maybe how their views can be problematic, and just get them to maybe question or rethink like how they're viewing the world.
Right. It's really real hard to, believe that they are wrong, but still show that, to show your disapproval with some subtlety, probably.
I mean, it's really difficult, and as I said, I mean, it's easier said than done. I can go on and tell you how to do it, but it's harder to put into practice.
Was you ever, like, as far as you remember, was there any situation that makes you very proud or very disappointed about the way you deal with this situation, like a specific situation in negotiating relations,
like values? I mean, there are. An example of me being disappointed is, I'm going to bring you back to the example with my mom and about the R word, and that I think I was really harsh on her, and I think I expected her, since I had a problem using that word, I expected her to automatically change and stop using that word just because I had a problem. So I made it all about me, when really I should have made it about the fact that when she says that word, it can offend people who that word can be used against.
So do you regret about thinking her offense as something personal?
Yeah, I was making it all about me. I was turning into like a selfish act, and I also regret, because I remember I was speaking pretty harshly to her, and I was getting really angry, and I also regret that too. I wish I had stayed calmer, and I had calmly explained to her why I didn't want to continue to use that word, and why I didn't like it when she used it. I wish I had done that. Instead of, I think I was, I don't know if I yelled or screamed, but I think I got upset.
But still, to hold a very dearly, you have to take it very close to your heart, right? Which means that, because I know that you take the ideas of LGBT and everything very seriously, and then it may not completely be your fault. You could take your mother's words very personally instead of taking it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that it's not my fault, but I think taking it too personally made it so that I saw her as an enemy, and so I treated her not like my mom. I didn't treat her with the respect she deserved.